Hello and welcome to Genealogy Quick Start. Guess what? We have two new quick starts for you today. If you are not already a subscriber to Genealogy Quick Starts newsletter, go ahead and scan that QR code. We only send out just to notify you of what our next episode is going to be and to share links to our episodes. I am, if you don't know, Shamel Jordan, producer and host of Genealogy Quick Start. If you are here, please do what we love for you to do is let us know where you are. And if you're a member of a genealogy group, please represent your group by sharing. Today, like I said, we have two new quick starts and one Michael created. Unfortunately, Jim is not with us today, sadness. But Michael can handle himself, I think. We'll see. But Michael wants to take you beyond family pictures. Michael is getting into the built environment during this show, and we'll talk more about what that is. And we have a super special guest. Together, we both published in an August journal. This is how I know Marvin Tupper Jones. And when I've met a lot of community researchers, this guy is a community doer, okay? His preservation efforts are absolutely just mind-blowing. I'm still trying to take it all in. And I'm just really happy that we, co-authored together so that I could have him in my life because I need to understand how he gets all of this done. And so he is going to share something that many genealogists eventually morph into. We start researching our families and we eventually realize the community, especially if our family remained in a community for, a very long time. Doing that community research is really, really key to getting closer to know more about our families' lives. So without further ado, make sure you put your names in there and know where you are and your genealogy groups. Let me bring out genealogy tip of the day, Michael John Neill. How are you, Michael?
I'm doing well, Shamel. How are you? How are you?
I'm good. So, Michael, I never asked you this before. Do you do community research? Which communities have you kind of like have you lost your family? Not lost them, but just expanded beyond your own line in any specific communities?
Well, I guess I have and I haven't. The problem is where some of my people live, they lived for generations and they were related before they even moved into those areas. There's some small little towns in west central Illinois that I've kind of done that with because we're all just simply related anyway. And the ones that aren't in some way, shape, or form have some connection. So some of us that have really rural people that stay in places for a long time, you do. It's not a formal community study, but if it's kind of an informal, kind of an informal thing where you maybe not research them all as thoroughly as you would your family, so to speak, your blood relations, but you learn a little bit about them just because their names appear in things on a regular basis. Um, you know,
Agreed. So it's kind of less like like you said, an in-depth study, but kind of like a little mini dig.
well, yeah,
It's
it's
not a
just more
full
like
arc.
right. You're just pretending you're a nosy neighbor from 1870 instead of a nosy neighbor from 2025. And you just kind of want to know what the scoop is. The thing that I would like to, it's too bad I can't go back in time. They say, who would you want to talk to? What ancestor? I don't know. I think I'd like to talk in a couple towns where my people lived. I'd like to talk to the mailman
The
because
mailman.
they know all the scoop. When you deliver mail, you know where they're getting mail from. You see things. You know who has financial troubles, legal troubles, whatever, because of the mail they get.
Oh,
You know what I'm saying? And
I love
um,
that. I'm adding the
you know,
mailman to my list, Michael. I thought it might be the milkman, but I get the mailman. I
well, the
get the
milk the
mailman.
milkman is usually a different issue we're not going to get into, but the mailman usually, he or she usually knows a lot of the scandal. Once it's legal, they see who gets what mail, and they talk to a lot of people in the course of their daily. If you think about that too.
I thought the priest too, but no. The mailman beats the milkman and the priest, Michael. I'm
Because that
with you.
crosses all different denominations. See that some of those things you're only targeting in one denomination, but you get the milkman, you get the mailman, you're covered because people get the mail and they gotta eat and drink, so you get your bases covered that way.
I love that, Michael. You're hysterical. Who do we have with us today? Hey, Judy. Thanks for being here from Chicagoland and Illinois State Genealogical Society. Hello, Cynthia Cruz from Polar Express in Topeka, Kansas, and Topeka Genealogical Society. Hey, Jenny Watton from the frigid and snowy Lincoln, Nebraska, Lancaster County. It's moving. Genealogical Society. Hey, Anita Payne from TNGS and Fayette County, Tennessee. Hello, Renata. How are you? Hey, Jean from Collegeville, PA, AAGG, Aug's Family Quest, South Carolina Historical, and AAHGS, Greater Virginia. And hello, Mrs. Scorp, as in P.O. Oh, you are crazy. That's my cousin. All right. Hey, Judy. Oh, so Judy did talk to the mailman. But he wasn't the local gossip, but he was an astute historian. So Judy got to live your dream, Michael. Hello, Maldine from St. Louis, Missouri, with the great St. Louis County Library. And hello, Valerie. And we couldn't start until you get here from Philly area and the Genealogical Society of Pennsylvania. So, Michael, going solo today. I think you can handle it. You came up with
We'll find out.
We'll find out. You came up with a great title, which I'm sure Jim would have vetoed as well. But hey, we're doing the best we can, Bidler.
That's right.
So tell us what this quick start Beyond Family Pictures is all about today.
Well, we're going to talk about the importance of getting pictures of other things. Maybe you don't have pictures of your dead people. And so you can't find them for whatever reason. They're not extant or what have you. There may be certain things they interacted with, places they lived or worked or whatever, that it's not the same as having pictures of your ancestor, but it's better than nothing. And so it might give you a little different perspective. They can make great illustrations in your family history or for blog posts or things of that nature if you're inclined that way. And it just gives you a little broader background, gives you a little different perspective. And sometimes it's kind of cool to have a picture of building your ancestor might have been in, lived in, got arrested in, those kinds of things, depending upon, what's going on. So we're going to talk about those.
This is Rikers Island in 1913. I don't even know if Rikers was around.
I don't know, or this is the hotel where your relative was shot, like I've got one. Couldn't find a picture that wasn't probably going to be copyright infringement, so we're not going to use a picture of that location today. But I did find pictures of it on the internet.
Fantastic. I love that. The picture, the building that tells the story. So you ready to get started with your quick start?
I am ready to get started. We're good to go.
All right. So Beyond Family Pictures. Step 1 is to pick an ancestor. So, we have a lot of them. How do we choose which ancestors for this task?
I hate to say pick your favorite because I don't believe in having favorite ancestors, but maybe one that you'd like to know a little more about. Maybe one you don't have any pictures of. It's going to be easiest to start with one where you've got some documents and some addresses and some residential clues about that individual, or some things as we're going to see in some of the examples, churches they might have attended, things they might have been a member of, or things of that type. But just pick somebody you want to learn more about, maybe one you've not looked at in a while. It could be a good opportunity to revisit one you've not spent some time on in a little bit.
Love that. So definitely, especially if you can't have, there's no picture of them at all. At least you have a picture of something. So step two would then be to gather records on that ancestor. So what type of records could give us clues to the built environment which our ancestor might have lived in?
Any document that might mention where they worked, someplace where they went to church, where they died, if they did, maybe they didn't die at home. Did they die in a hospital? Did they die in a, like, one I had that died in a motel? Those are things. Any record that would give you something that might tie you to a location or a building. And we're not going to want to suggest you take pictures of grassy fields or timber or things of that type, but things that could still be extant.
And
So
places mentioned in newspapers, like maybe
newspapers,
if they were in a lodge or something.
exactly. So depending upon the time period, an obituary might be another good place to start, because there'll be memberships and things like
Obituaries.
that, that might
Yeah.
be mentioned. A death notice, even some family ephemera that might be stuck in the family Bible that might mention membership someplace, where they were naturalized. Maybe we're talking about getting a picture of the courthouse. Just kind of depends upon what you know.
Ooh.
Any place that might still be in existence that they were probably at one point in time.
Okay. So, step three is then to extract names and locations, buildings, organizations, etc. So, kind of just like make a list of all that
Make
stuff
a
for that
list. If
person.
you're really crazy about spreadsheets or tables and things like that, put it in a spreadsheet or a table if that kind of helps you get a little bit organized. And you could also use it to work on a chronology too as well. But that just get the
Oh.
places kind of in a list to help you when you're actually doing the looking around for finding some images or even records of some of these places. Because our purpose in this presentation is to talk about getting pictures of these buildings and the environment, like you mentioned. But kind of a secondary hope is maybe in doing this, in addition to be finding some pictures of something or more information about an organization or a building or whatnot, you might find records you're not aware of. So that should be,
Oh.
your main focus is the location and the pictures in this instance, but there might be some other things that come about because we're taking a little bit different approach. We're taking these records not to look for the ancestor, but to look for places and locations and things. And when we do that, we might notice something we didn't notice before too, besides the pictures.
And also you learn the history of that place. Like there was a woman her name is on a building in my county seat. And when we found out she was in a girl's home, we found that girl's home, and learning about that girl's home helped us to learn more about what her life was actually like. So
Exactly, because you're
yeah,
getting some social history and things like that too.
love
Exactly.
that. So then we're extracting all this stuff. We have our list. We're moving on to step four, which is in the search for photos online. Where are some of the good places to find these pictures of the
You could
built
just
environment?
start with a basic Google search. You could search on eBay, but I would just start with a Google search. You could also look for libraries in the
Local
area where the
libraries.
person lived. I know there was um, a distant relative that I discovered was in a play on Broadway,
Oh,
two play
cool.
two plays actually, and I hadn't thought he wasn't in New York very long enough to be in these two short run plays, and then he went back to Nebraska. But there was a digital archives on the New York Public Library's website.
I
And
love the New York Public Library.
and the thing is, this also makes the point, I don't have New York people. So that's not one of the things on my radar to think. Libraries are, but it didn't click right away. But I eventually went in there and looked, and I found a picture of him. And I'm assuming I know where the YMCA or whatever he lived in for a while, and the theater he acted in. And those are two things I could also get pictures of. Haven't done that
Oh,
yet because
very
I,
nice.
had some of the things I had to get done, but those would be things I could also get pictures of. So your local library, libraries in the area, historical genealogical societies, those would all be places too, because we'll suggest start with a Google search, but a lot of pictures, some of the ones that we're going to see in the presentation, they were not found with the Google search. Some were found by going to the one we're going to see of the snow here in a little bit, was by going to the County Historical Society, and they had a vertical file, and they pulled some images for me that they had in their vertical file.
Very nice. Definitely, I would add Library of Congress to the list because they have a very, very, very nice, like large collections. Yeah. And
Right, because
going to the place is the most important thing, but we always try to talk about what's online. But
right, so
going
you're
to
right.
the place is going to yield some amazing things. Like I found something at Temple University in the Bloxon collection that wasn't even a part of their catalog. It just happened to be slipped in a book, and it's a picture of the building of the Oddfellows. So
Right, but
offline is necessary, but
it
there's a
is,
lot
and
of great stuff
right.
online.
No, the Library of Congress is another good example, because people sometimes they'll search for their dead names, their dead people in that location, in that in their database and whatnot. But we don't always think to search for names of churches, names of lodges, names of other organizations that we might have an ancestor to be a member of. And so you might want to go back to them, because that's what we're thinking about. We're not looking for names at this point. We're looking for buildings and organizations and things of that type. Or even a
All right.
funeral home. Do you want a
Oh
picture of the
yeah.
funeral home where the funeral was at? I
The
mean, it kind of
funeral home. Yes. My family had funeral homes in Barber County. I thought that was always interesting. Step 5 is, what is coalesce, Michael?
just put it together. I got tired of saying review, and so I had to have a different word. So, just kind of put it all together.
All right, let's put it all together.
We're going to just go through some examples of some images. Some of these I had, some of them I pulled rather quickly the other day. Did your ancestor attend college? Maybe finding a picture of the dorm they lived in, or if you know where they had classes. That might be something that might be applicable to you. If we go, so this is the Carthage College. This building is I don't think it's standing any longer, because and the thing about some of these locations is we want to keep in mind places change, buildings change. So that building was not the one that was maybe there 30 or 40 years later. In the case of this college in the 1960s, it just pulled up and went from Western Illinois to Kenosha, Wisconsin. So it's all in a totally new location. But the buildings could be, maybe you want to get a picture of that. That's where great grandma went to class for a while, or whatever the case may be. The next one, I think that you've got there, if I was looking at them correctly, this is the hospital where both my parents were actually born there in 1941 and
Oh,
1942.
cool.
Now, the thing about pictures of some of these things is that might not be what it looked like at the point in time they were born there. Judy asked what step 5 was. Step 5 was coalesce, or just to put everything together.
Pull it all together, Judy.
Put it all together. This might not be what it looked like when my parents were born there. This might have been the original building or one of the earlier buildings. I know I didn't include the text of this, of the note on the back of this photograph, but the lady mentions there have been several, in a postcard dated 1936, she mentioned there have been several additions to the hospital since this picture. So you might, always want to see if you've got a contemporary to when your people would have been there, picture of it.
Yeah.
Or at least know when it was taken. So you could say, well, this was before they were born there, but it's a picture of it. What I thought was really kind of cool in the postcard, the writer says, "This is the dump where I work." That is the phrase she uses, dump where she works, which I thought was, it kind of made a statement that that was from 1936, so some things don't change. But it was cool for me to get a picture of it. This is also where my great grandmother and grandfather died a little bit later. Same hospital. So I'm not sure if it's still standing or not, but it's no longer a functioning hospital. If memory serves. So that would be something else to get a picture of. Yeah,
Did you get these? Where did you get these two? Because they look like they're from the same book or whatever.
It's kind of the same style. This one I got off of eBay. The other one I'd have to look and see probably got it off of eBay too. If it was done by the same print company that printed these, because that I've seen a lot of postcards from this era that kind of have that same look for the the coloring and the style of it.
Yes.
Um, but I thought it was cool just to have an image of it.
I
This
love
was
it.
I love this picture. This was one that I got from the local county historical society. It was not online. I had to actually go there. This was from Colby County, Kansas. Um, or it's Thomas. No, I get the county and the town mixed up. It's in Thomas County. I think it's Thomas County, Colby, Kansas. Anyway, the historical society there, they had several pictures. This is a relative's dry goods store. This is a picture after some apparent snowstorm.
I mean, a big snowstorm.
A big one, yeah. And I thought I know we're supposed to be evergreen, but given all the snow that's been going on, I thought this was a nice one to have at this.
I love it. This one's a
so
great.
I love that. That's a distant cousin's general store. I think we've got another one from the same. Oops, we'll get to it in a second. That's the
Sorry,
same one.
I think I put them in the order that I tried to.
That's okay. That's okay. Well, we'll get there. This is a death certificate which lists his death at the Midwest Hotel in Kansas City in 1921.
Oh.
So that might be something else. This was the one I had trouble finding an old enough copyright-free image, so we don't have one to use as an illustration. But I did a little looking at this hotel. For a little bit in the late 20th, early 21st century. It was in a not so great part of town. There was a music video that was filmed in front of this hotel, just with all kinds of interesting stuff from what I gathered. So it was, I don't know where it was like in 1921, but much later it was a not so great part of town.
So there were
some
suspicious circumstances for him to be in this hotel.
Well,
dying.
I'm not sure if it might not have been that kind of a hotel in 1921. We also want to keep in mind things change over time.
Most definitely.
What was true about 1921 might not be true about 1991 or today either. So you want to keep in mind that things do change over time. But this was an address. This was from the Chicago Tribune. This was a relative that had a drugstore, so if your person had a business, we already saw an example of a picture of one of those earlier.
Yes.
This is one where I searched for him on the newspaper website. It pulled up a reference to a robbery at his drugstore.
Oh, no.
But I've got the street address for his drugstore. So that would, if I wanted to try to get pictures of that, of course, I could start with Google Maps and those kinds of things. See what is there now. But this might be something else to try to reach out to other libraries and things of that type to see if I could find something contemporary to the situation. Because again, over time things change quite a bit. But this would be another address that if your person had a business, do you know where that business was at? And you try to find pictures of the storefront or whatever is appropriate. Here's another one from Trot Vetters.
Those Trot Vetters, is this the same one or a different?
This is the same one. I think they've changed the display over at the top of the store. This was before he really took in the other dude as a partner. I think it's just Trot Vetters at this point in time. It might be later. I don't know. I forget the chronology of when he was with that guy. But
there's no big giant hill.
There's no snow here. I think it's in the same spot. In the same spot. It's just the angle. I think the angle is different and there's no snow. So that kind of gives it a little bit different look there. And the storefront has changed a little bit.
It's great pictures, Michael. Where did you get these pictures? Did you have these in your collection already?
On a trip to Kansas, I got these pictures at the County Historical Society, where this is located. These were not ones that I had. Were you
looking for them, or were you just looking through pictures and you're like, oh my God, there's the Trot Vetters?
I went out there and they told them who I was looking for, and they said, oh, we have a vertical file for this name. And they pulled, and I got I think maybe 30 or 40 pictures. Some were of people, just people. There were others that were of the store, and the ones of the store, I was happy to get the ones of the people, but the ones of the store were really cool. Uh,
Yeah, these are super cool. I could stare at them for days just trying to figure out what the heck are they doing.
right, and this must be some kind of parade. Maybe I'm thinking. I'm not exactly sure. There looks like there's some farm equipment in the foreground of that. What another thing I have from this store is I went on eBay and typed that name in Kansas and the town, and I've got these. You know how some businesses would give out coins that weren't really coins, but you take them back to the store and they were for $1.50 or whatever.
Yes, yes, yes.
There are coins. That store had those coins with their name printed on them. So I've got probably 3 or 4 of those coins that I purchased on eBay from probably the 1940s that they use as a marketing
That is
tool.
so freaking cool, Michael. I'm telling you, you have the family equivalent of a Smithsonian
Well,
museum.
something like that. This is a picture. I had this picture. It's my dad and his brother taken probably in the 1950s, looking at how old my dad probably is there. Um, at their aunt and uncle's house in Peoria, Illinois. And it took me a while to figure. I didn't know where it was taken. I knew it was my dad and his brother. I did not know where it was taken. I knew it was not at my grandparents' house. I knew it was not really near where they lived because it had that look of a house in a city or a larger town than where they grew up. And I kind of suspected. I had to do a little bit of research to figure out this one. I knew they had relatives in a couple different larger towns, and so I got the address of where I with the city directory, and in the 1950s, and there'd been a street renumbering at some point in time from then to now.
Always.
And I went to the library, and they helped me convert the 1950 address to
Nice.
a 2024 address. And I was concerned that what had happened, I was concerned that when the interstate was put in, that it had
Mm-hmm.
been torn down. It had
Oh,
not. And
oh,
to get confirmation, I had the right house. I went to the address. Luckily, I don't live that far from Peoria. I drove by the house today. I did look at it on Google Maps, but I drove by the house today, and
like today, as in today.
not today, as in like 3 months ago,
Okay.
and it looks pretty much the same as it does in this picture for the
Oh,
for the
wow.
most part. It hasn't been tremendous. The front hasn't been remodeled or
That's
reconfigured or
great,
whatever. So I
Michael.
knew I had the right place. I also did it on Google Maps, but it
Yeah.
was close enough that I could actually um, do it. Drive by it and look. And I didn't stop too long because I didn't want to be creepy. Um,
So identify those houses and buildings that are
right.
in the pictures. What do
Because for
we
me
have
that was
here?
kind of cool because my dad and his brother have been there all those years ago.
Yeah.
This is an example. I took my aunt taught school for several years. In her obituary, it mentions all the different schools she had been at and where they were at and what year she taught there. So I just put that in a spreadsheet. And
Nice.
then next on my list is to go and see if I can find pictures of any of those. They're all one room, with the exception of the last one there. I'm pretty sure they're all one room, and maybe the one in Clayton. They're all probably one room schoolhouses. So I'm probably not going to get pictures of all of them. I may get lucky and get a picture. If I get a picture of one, I'll be happy. Um, but the chart was
Nice.
just a way to keep myself organized when there's a lot of different places to do that. So if you're going to do this for your person, you're going to have obviously different headings from what I had there, but take those places, the churches, all those things, the lodges, anything they were a member of, make your big old list, and then keep track and try to see which ones you can find more information out about.
I love that, Michael. Thank you so much for a quick
Thank you.
start. Let's run through the steps. Beyond family picture, step 1, you want to pick an ancestor. Step 2, you want to gather the records on that ancestors. Step 3, extract the names of locations, buildings, and organizations. Step 4, search for photographs online. And step 5, coalesce, pull it all together. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. We have our second quick start with our special guest. Um, he's going to knock your socks off. He has so much stuff, and we're going to try not to rush through it. But man, is it some wonderful stuff. I would like to welcome Marvin Tupper Jones. Hello, Marvin.
Hello, good evening. Good evening, Shamel. Thank you for
Good
joining. Thanks for having me along.
and I'm really excited to have you here today. When I saw your slides, I was just like, oh my God, this is incredible. But before we get started, I would love to ask you a similar question to what I ask everyone, which is, when did you what's your history origin story? When did you get started as a historian? And when did you know that you were hooked?
I began documenting the logos in my community in northeastern North Carolina around 1979. I'd already been photographing my village of Coalfield, North Carolina, but also during that time, I was documenting and researching forts that Haitians built after Haiti became independent. Haiti built 27 forts. One of them is 450 feet long and 13 stories high. And that was my first big historical project.
I love
But I used to ask myself, can't you do something? I couldn't go to Haiti as much as I want. I said, can't you do something under your nose? So I finally started working on my fairly unique community in northeastern North Carolina, the Winton Triangle.
which we are going to hear all about today. I'm so glad that you got bit by the bug, Marvin.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
So let's go ahead. Are you ready to get started with your quick start?
Yes, I am.
All righty. So Marvin's quick start is researching a community. I love having community researchers on here because everyone kind of has a similar script, but a little, their own little spice to it. And boy, you have a lot going on, Marvin. So I definitely am looking forward to what your spice is and how you can help us to also be preservationists or at least to support preservationists. So you ready to go with step? We're going to talk about it first and then we'll pull up your slides. So step
Yes.
one is to read books and articles. So what types of books and articles are you suggesting that people read, and where are great places online that people can find these books and articles?
In understanding my community, I needed to understand the Civil War because the Civil War generated a lot of documents. And I didn't know what my community's role was in the Civil War. So I read a lot of local history books. One in particular gave me a pretty good idea of what could have been going on. Uh, I later discovered that my community had a lot of United States colored troops, and that 20 members of my family were in the United States colored troops, plus one sailor. So I read about USCTs, as they are called. I read about um, their work, say, going from Florida to Virginia, because our local USCTs did serve in Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, and some of them were Juneteenth soldiers, soldiers who were in Texas around the time of Juneteenth. And it turns out one is buried on our farm. My
Wow.
father added his farm to ours when Martin Reynolds' son died. So it was right,
So
turned out it was right under my nose. I've been passing this grave for years, as a child, and even this morning, because I just came from North Carolina today.
So Marvin, you're saying, once you dug into the history, that's when it kind of, reading these books and articles, it started to come to life and you could see what your community was doing during the Civil War. And then that's how you ran into your own ancestors. Are there any special places you'd like to go online for books? Or you mostly go to the library?
Some I had, the first book was in a library. It was about our largest town, and it was a series of essays. And a lady, Katie Hart, who you'll be meeting later, wrote an essay about early Negro education in my county. And she mentioned that my church built a schoolhouse in 1866, and she lists some of the men who built the schoolhouse. One was my great great grandfather, and three of them were my ancestral uncles. And a lot came out of that, and we'll get into that later.
No,
About that.
that's pretty deep. Let's move on to step two. So we
Okay.
have our books, we have our articles. Now we're moving on to step two, interview elders. So when you started, were there a lot of elders around for you to interview?
Yes. My father, a lot of his contemporaries. I interviewed some of our teachers, some of our business people, because the Winton Triangle had a lot of business people. I interviewed one of our logging contractors whose operation I'd photographed many years earlier. Uh, People who may have seen events in my community and would have comments about them. I mean, I grew up hearing a lot of stories from my elders about my community and about my family, extended family.
Did you capture any formal interviews, or was it mostly kind of like phone calls, one-on-one, taking notes
They
sort
are
of thing?
they are formal on audio and video.
All right. Look, see, I told you Marvin was deep. He not playing around. I love that, Marvin. All right,
Thank
so
you.
that's step two. Step three, after you interviewed the elders, you got in your history, then you want to learn the leaders and significant locations. So you talked about some of the leaders who were building schools, who were members of the United States Colored Troops. Were How did you determine the significant locations? You did talk about your church building a school. How did you gather this information?
Well, I did a stage production down home of what I knew about the community, and I was contacted by a collector who had a lot of papers belonging to one of our Reconstruction leaders. And I learned so much about him. And I started asking, how was William David Newsom connected to one of our one of our religious leaders who founded 27 churches after the war, Lemuel Boone. And and then by looking at people's documents and looking at documents I had been loaned and reading what I could, I was able to connect William David Newsom and Lemuel Boone to a lot of people. I was able to connect Lemuel Boone to a Juneteenth sergeant who is buried next to our farm, who is married to a relative of ours, who played a role in founding two other schools in addition to my church's school. And also I have a ancestral cousin who I got a North Carolina Highway Historical marker for because he did so many things, Parker Robbins. Well, I found a news article where there was a political meeting where Lemuel Boone, this political leader, Parker Robbins, my cousin, who was a sergeant major and a state legislator, and William David Newsom, my church school's first teacher, who was also a state legislator. All three of them at this meeting. That's a
Oh,
great connection. And Parker Robbins and Lemuel Boone have highway markers. And I'm hoping within a few months that we David Newsom will have a highway marker. So these people were, and then other people are connected to them, and then you move into the newer generations, the connections there on how they partner together, and that really builds,
Okay.
a narrative.
Okay. So the more you collect, the more the narrative comes to life. So step 4 is to scan community collections. How did you get people to let you scan their stuff? And what types of things? Was this a particular project that you asked for specific things? How did you go about scanning community collections? I'm really interested in doing this myself.
On the 150th anniversary, for the 150th anniversary of my church, I designed and produced the booklet, and I asked members of the church to let me scan their collections, and they were buying memorial pages, and a memorial page, for a departed, was $50, and that helped pay for the book. You sell all these pages, so they would bring their photographs, and I would scan them, and I saw how rich things were, and they let me use these collections. Also, I would ask people if I could either scan on their kitchen table or if they would loan them to me. I don't have a bad reputation in my community. And my parents were well liked, so a lot of people would loan me their collections. And of course, later today, you could just use a smartphone and just
Yes.
photograph a lot of it in half an hour and beyond. Um, and
Nope,
so,
I get it. It seems like you had a project, a specific project to do history, and that just kind of morphed into more. Would you agree?
yes, no question. And of course, I did some of the things Michael did. I went to the state archives,
Mhm.
and was able to get more photographs and more documents.
And that is step 5, which is to research the community. So you said you went to the state archives, you were able to get some more stuff. And we're gonna go to your slides because you have a lot of slides to show this stuff. But then you presented the story, which is step 6. So let's share some of your beautiful slides. And here we are. So what do we have here?
This is W.J. Boone, who was he's a retired logging contractor, one of my interviewees, and whose operation I photographed. He's at the grave of Simon Collins's family, and he was the USCT.
Okay.
And it's in the woods. It's difficult to find. I would like to go there one more time. I mean, I'm able to find it, but I couldn't believe how far we had to go to get to it. And then, also, I went through 35 pension folders of our USCTs
Mm-hmm.
and scanned and photographed them. I mean, that's a big part of the collection. 35 USCTs. Um, the
Just so that you know, I Am Museum is looking for scans of that sort of stuff to put in their collection in Charleston. I don't know if you know that they're looking for that. What is this on the right-hand side that you're looking at?
A collector loaned me 12 boxes of William David Newsom's papers, and they were in a
Wow.
barn, and I had to wear a mask. This is well before COVID, and I had to use a portable vacuum cleaner to keep cleaning the table. And so I'm going through all these papers, box by box, and selecting papers to scan. I even collected all of the letters and put them and organized them in a folder, gave them back to the collector, and he was very pleased that I organized all the letters.
Fantastic.
I returned it in better condition, right?
Fantastic.
So, um, I took a lot of the research, and we now have 11 historical markers up. I'm a Choanoke descendant. The English met the Choanoke people 21 years before Jamestown, or intruded into the Choanoke people and their community, their nation in 1586. And I got a highway marker that was my first highway marker. And
That's really nice.
on the right, you see members of my family with the marker on the day that we dedicated it. So we've been in our region probably
Nice.
probably for 1,200 years.
Love it. Here's another one. I think you have some documents on this one too,
Right. We
right?
could talk about Nat Turner's role in our family. Every time I drive to North Carolina or back, I pass this Virginia marker for Nat Turner's insurrection. I was really surprised when it finally went up, but then I realized that Virginia finally had gotten a black governor, Doug Wilder. Let's move to the next slide. And also, I passed the surviving house where someone was killed during the Nat Turner Rebellion. This house has been moved and restored, and so I see it every time I drive to North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
And our county's on the Virginia border. What was rather shocking was a cousin let me go through the Robbins family papers, and I was quite aware of the Nat Turner Rebellion, where it was located. And when I saw this document of belonging to my great great grandfather, Noah Robbins, it's dated 4 days after the rebellion, and it says that he is a free man of color. He's a native of the area, and he's entitled to all rights. He had to have this document to protect himself because there was a huge backlash against people of color, whether free, enslaved, or free. So he needed this 4 days after the rebellion, this certificate. And so it's an astounding document to have. I'm the 6th member of the family to possess this document, this certificate. So that's my family's connection to the Nat Turner Rebellion. Noah Robbins' son, 2 of his sons, my great grandfather, Andrew Jackson Robbins, and his brother Noah Jr., were USCTs. And this is Jack Robbins's photograph, his signature, and his promotion paper at the age of 18 to corporal in the 34th Infantry USCT.
Was this picture in his pension packet?
No, I placed that. This photograph was part of the collection that had the Nat Turner related document.
Oh my goodness.
So I just overlaid the photograph and his
I get
The
artistic.
signature, and
Talent.
the signature is from the pension folder.
Love that. I'm gonna have to pull them. I'm taking that, Marvin, just so that you know when you see my slide like that, I'm doing that. All right, here's some more markers. Marvin,
These are more markers, and here's Parker David Robbins, who was Jack's cousin, who was a state legislator,
nice.
steamboat builder, operator, patent holder, house builder, some of everything. Cotton
Where'd you
gin
get
on.
this picture?
This picture belonged to his son and his son's daughter, and his son's widow, and she gave it to the North Carolina History Museum.
Okay.
Of him.
Love it.
And then
Marvin, you're like collecting, like this is incredible, all of these markers.
But it helps me understand my community by spreading outside of the county, because all 3 of these are outside of my county. All 4 of these markers are outside of my county. You can't just understand my immediate community. You have to understand what's going on around it as well.
I love it. Okay.
Going back to USCTs, this marker, we were never told, it was long forgotten, that 2,000 USCTs marched from Norfolk area into North Carolina destroying rebel camps and supplies, and they rescued 2,500 people. Wow's raid, it was General Douglas Wow. A lot of the soldiers were from our region, and many of the soldiers were rescuing their families and their neighbors.
Oh, wow.
And
I
so
love that.
also we have 3 North Carolina civil rights trails markers. To get these markers, you have to do a good deal of research.
Mm-hmm.
Another church, Newahoska Baptist Church, had civil rights rallies. My father took my sister and I to the rallies in the early 60s. And when I heard about this program, I immediately thought of Newahoska. And so this is they're putting up 50 of these, and we got marker number 1. And
All right.
you see me with my classmate Charlie Press Morris, who also attended the rallies growing up.
Okay. Okay.
And then we have
Same.
our second civil rights marker in
Oh,
Kinston, North Carolina, several counties away. Uh,
okay.
and finally, in October, uh, the head of the Black Elks, Hobson R. Reynolds, who got him a marker. I'd been around Reynolds, but I didn't know how much civil rights work he had done. It was amazing. The Elks asked
Wow.
me, the Elks asked me to get this marker. And
Love
then my
that.
research supports researchers and authors. You see some of the books where I have provided support for, and I give
Nice.
tours, and I hope you'll be one of them one day. I give tours to history professionals from universities and governments, and as well as journalists.
Love that.
And I took this research and I created a 30-panel exhibit called Building a Mixed Race Community: People, Buildings, and Sites of the Winton Triangle. And here are 4 of the panels. And
This is beautiful.
this exhibit end to end is 75 feet long.
I think you have a picture showing that. Yes, this is it.
Yes, that's it at the top. So you can see it, how it curves around in this gymnasium.
This is beautiful.
And
This
it's
is
it's
beautiful.
funded in part by North Carolina Humanities.
What
And my
size are those? Those are beautiful. Oh my gosh, I don't even know what to ask you about them. I just love this exhibit. Lots
well,
of awards.
and
Congratulations.
then we received awards. We can move on about that. Going back to my church's school, it was replaced by Roosevelt Building. This is it. In around 1920. And I had it placed on the National Register of Historic Places. Again, that took a lot of research.
Can you tell us what a Rosenwald School is first, like briefly?
Booker T. Washington influenced Julius Roosevelt, an executive at Sears Roebuck, to provide seed money for 5,300 schools for African Americans in the South, starting around 1918 or something like that. And so my county had 9 Roosevelt schools. I attended classes in our auditorium, which is a Roosevelt building. Julius Roosevelt might have funded maybe 15%, but it spurred people to go beyond that. And it was one
Thank
of the
you.
greatest things done for Blacks in the South until the Civil Rights era.
Thank you. So this is one of those schools.
This is one of those schools. And it's also, again, I mentioned Katie Hart earlier. I wrote a paper about her, and of course it appears in the Args Journal along with your paper. And Katie Hart wrote about early Negro education, and her essay provided so much about our early post-war history. She interviewed her father who became a teacher, who was maybe a 6-year-old student at a new school, and my great grandmother was an 18-year-old student who'd been in. So they were in the same school together. And she
That
also
is
married that year, and that might have ended her schooling when she married Jack Robbins, the soldier. So I
okay.
learned so much from Katie Hart. And um, and it's, in looking at state archives, I found that the school actually existed in the 1850s. It received what is called common school funding. And you see the name Lawrence Weaver, who's the ancestral uncle, Lawrence Weaver et al., and others. But it
Uh-huh.
received $3 in 1959 for the school. Uh,
Oh,
so the school was, again, the schoolhouse was built 7 years later. But
gotcha.
that was,
That's cool.
to me, that was astounding to find that document that the
Huge.
school existed in the 1850s.
Huge. That is super, like, education was quite fundamental for them. And
And
I
then this
think,
is from Katie Hart's article. And she writes below, during 1866, 10 men were responsible for building a schoolhouse at Pleasant Plains. Some of the available names listed are Lawrence Weaver, uncle, Dookie Marmaduke Hall, uncle, Willis Weaver, uncle, William Jones, my great-great-grandfather, and others. And that William David Newsom was the first teacher.
all
And
right.
so I've been able to go through a whole lot of William David Newsom's papers, and Katie Hart was really the core of me being able to do educational research. Um, Also, I photographed all the stained glass windows in my church, and I found that there was one dedicated to Newsom and his son-in-law, who was also a capable person as well. Among the papers loaned to me, he taught at a freedmen's colony on the Outer Banks of North Carolina. So this is a list of students he taught in May of 1866.
Is this from, where did this document come from? The Freedmen's Bureau or
Uh,
from?
again, the collector who loaned me 12 boxes of papers. This is
Gotcha.
from the boxes of papers he loaned me. You saw a
Wow.
photograph of me earlier wearing a mask going through some of those papers.
That's from that collection. Okay. Okay. This is amazing.
Also, I went through Freedmen's Bureau school payments, Family Search. I went to Family Search and went through Freedmen's Bureau payments to William David Newsom. At the top for Pleasant Plains and other schools, Philippi School. My father attended Philippi, and Katie Hart was his first school teacher. And then the second one was for a school in Winton, and it was made out to Benjamin Morris, who was another great-great-grandfather who served in the Navy in the war.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
So I'm finding family involvement here.
Is this voting register? And we have less than a minute to go. Is
Repeat
this a
that.
voting? We have less than a minute to
Good to
go.
go. Okay.
Is this a voting register?
Well, this is a list of voters that he collected. It's not a registry, but he
Okay.
collected who voted.
Okay. Very
And I have
cool.
uncles and my great-great-grandfather on this list. Well, two great-great-grandfathers on this list. Also, there were a lot of our USCTs on this list. These are some of their names
Oh,
on that
wow.
list. So all these were soldiers who voted. We also have a marker coming up for Pleasant Plains School.
And
We
let's talk
also
about this pillar. This pillar.
Oh, okay. Also, we got a few seconds. I also want a grant to replace columns on our Roosevelt Auditorium. We have 4 columns. So far, we've replaced 2, and we're working to replace the final 2.
Fantastic. We are going to have to end there, Marvin, with your fantastic slides. Let's
Okay.
run through our quick start for researching a community which is step 1, to read books and articles. Step 2, interview elders. Step 3, learn about the leaders in significant locations. Step 4, scan community collections. Step 5, research the community. And step 6, present the story. Marvin, that was fantastic. I wish we had more time. Michael, thank you as well for your quick start. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And we hope that you got something out of these quick starts because I sure did. Thank you so much.